At our Thanksgiving dinner, everything was interrupted when the police knocked on our door, asking for a woman named Scarlett. "Wrong address," I said. But my grandson whispered in panic, "Grandma, that's Mommy's real name, and that's not all." What I learned next horrified me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The turkey was golden brown, sitting proud in the center of my dining table like it had every Thanksgiving for the past 43 years. I'd gotten up at 5 that morning to prep the stuffing, just like always, my hands moving through the familiar motions, even though arthritis made them stiffer than they used to be. At 67, I still insisted on doing Thanksgiving myself, in my own home, the farmhouse where I'd raised my 3 children and buried my husband 5 years back. The house smelled of sage and butter, cinnamon and pie crust. My son Steve and his wife Monica had arrived around 2 with my grandson Tyler, who was 12 now. Tall and quiet in that way boys get when they're caught between childhood and something harder. My daughter Susan came alone as usual, fresh from her shift at the hospital, still wearing her scrubs under her coat. My youngest Peter showed up late with apologies and wine. His contractor's hands scrubbed clean but still bearing the evidence of honest work. We were just sitting down, just beginning to join hands for grace, when the knock came. Not a friendly knock. Not the kind neighbors make when they're dropping by with a casserole. This was official. Hard. The kind that makes your stomach drop, even when you've done nothing wrong. I excused myself and walked to the front door, wiping my hands on my apron out of habit. Through the beveled glass, I could see 2 figures in uniform. Police. My heart hammered as I opened the door. "Yes?" The officer closest to me was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes that didn't match the tension in his jaw. His partner was older, a woman with her hand resting near her belt in a way that made my mouth go dry. "Ma'am, we're looking for a woman named Scarlett Thorne. We have reason to believe she may be at this address." The name meant nothing to me. I shook my head, confused. "There's no one here by that name. This is my home, has been for 40 years. Just family here for Thanksgiving." The female officer consulted something on her phone, then looked up at the brass numbers beside my door. "This is 4782 Oakmont Road?" "It is, but I'm telling you, you've got the wrong house. No Scarlett anything here." They exchanged glances. The younger officer cleared his throat. "Ma'am, could you tell us who is in your home right now?" Something cold slithered down my spine. "My children and my grandson, that's all." "Names?" I gave them reluctantly, watching their faces. When I said Monica's name, something flickered in the female officer's expression. Not recognition exactly, but something. "And Monica's maiden name?" "Richardson," I said automatically, then paused. "At least, that's what I've always known it as." More glances between them. The younger officer shifted his weight. "Ma'am, we may need to speak with her." "What's this about?" "We're not at liberty to discuss an ongoing investigation, but if you could ask Monica Richardson to come to the door." "No." I planted myself more firmly in the doorway. "Not until you tell me what this is regarding. She's having Thanksgiving dinner with her family, and unless you have a warrant, I don't think you'll be interrupting that." Years of raising 3 children and managing a farm when my husband's back gave out had given me a spine of steel when I needed it. The officers clearly weren't expecting resistance from a grandmother in a turkey-printed apron. The female officer's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, we're investigating identity fraud and possible involvement in financial crimes. The woman we're looking for has been using multiple aliases. If the Monica Richardson in your home matches the photo we have, show me." She hesitated, then pulled out her phone, turning the screen toward me. The image made my breath catch. It was Monica, or someone who looked remarkably like her, but the photo was clearly from years ago. Younger, different hair, and beneath it, the name, Scarlett Marie Thorne. "This must be a mistake," I managed, but my voice sounded hollow. "Is this the woman inside your home?" I couldn't lie to police, even as every instinct screamed to protect my family. It looks like her. But Monica is my daughter-in-law. She's been married to my son for 13 years. This has to be some kind of error." The younger officer's face softened. "Ma'am, we understand this is difficult, but we need to verify. Does she have any identification on her? A driver's license?" I don't know. I assume so. We'd like to speak with her. If there's been a mistake, we can clear it up quickly. My mind raced. Behind me, I could hear the murmur of conversation from the dining room. Tyler's laugh at something his uncle said. How could I let these officers shatter our Thanksgiving, possibly destroy my grandson's world, based on a photograph? Give me a moment, I said. And before they could protest, I shut the door. My hands were shaking as I returned to the dining room. Everyone looked up, their faces expectant, annoyed at the interruption. Monica was laughing at something Peter had said, her hand on Steve's arm, so natural, so familiar. 13 years of family dinners, of Christmas mornings and birthday parties and lazy summer barbecues. How could any of it be a lie? Who was it, Mom? Susan asked. Wrong address, I said, the lie bitter on my tongue. They're gone now. Let's say grace. But as we joined hands again and I began the prayer I'd spoken every Thanksgiving of my adult life, I felt Monica's hand in mine, cool and smooth, and wondered who I was really holding hands with. When I looked up, Tyler was staring at me with wide, knowing eyes. After dinner, while the adults were in the kitchen arguing about the proper way to store leftovers, Tyler appeared at my elbow. His face was pale, his jaw set in a way that reminded me painfully of his grandfather. Grandma, can we talk? Alone? I followed him to my husband's old study, a room I barely used anymore except to pay bills and store the boxes of photographs I kept meaning to organize. Tyler closed the door behind us and leaned against it, and I saw that he was trembling. Tyler, honey, what's wrong? Grandma, those cops. They were looking for someone named Scarlett, right? My heart stopped. How did you... I heard. I was in the hallway getting my jacket because I left my phone in the pocket, and I heard you talking to them. Grandma. His voice cracked. That's Mommy's real name. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the desk. What are you talking about? Scarlett. I found out by accident like 2 months ago. I needed her birth certificate for this school thing, and she was at work, so I looked in her lockbox where she keeps the important papers. Dad showed me where it was once. But Grandma, the name on it wasn't Monica Richardson, it was Scarlett Thorne. That's not possible. Your father married Monica. I know what I saw. His voice rose, then dropped to an urgent whisper. I confronted her about it later. She got really upset. Made me swear not to tell anyone, especially not Dad. She said it was complicated, that she'd changed her name legally because of her past, that Monica was her middle name and Richardson was her stepfather's name, and she just wanted to start fresh when she met Dad. She said she'd explain everything to everyone when I was older, when I could understand. I sank into the desk chair, my legs no longer able to support me. Did you believe her? Tyler's eyes filled with tears. I wanted to. But Grandma, there's more. After I found that, I started paying attention, you know? And I noticed things. How she never wants to take pictures. How she doesn't have any family photos from before she met Dad. Like not even one. How she freaks out if anyone even mentions looking her up online or finding her on social media. And she's never, not once in my whole life, let me meet anyone from her family. She says they're all dead or estranged, but that's what you'd say if you were hiding, right? The words tumbled out of him like he'd been holding them in for months, and probably he had. 2 months of carrying this secret, of looking at his mother and wondering who she really was. There's something else, he continued, his voice dropping even lower. Last week I was homesick from school, and a man came to the door. Mom didn't know I was upstairs. I heard her talking to him and she sounded scared. Really scared. He said something about her outstanding obligations and how the past always catches up. She gave him money, Grandma. Like a lot of cash. From a place in the garage I didn't even know existed. And after he left, she sat in the kitchen and cried for like an hour. My mind was reeling, trying to process it all. Did you tell your father any of this? No, I can't. If I'm wrong, or if it's something innocent, I'll destroy everything. But Grandma, those cops today, what if she's in real trouble? What if we're in danger? I stood up, forcing my mind to focus despite the chaos. Tyler, listen to me. We don't know anything for certain yet. Your mother may have very good reasons for everything you've described. There could be explanations we haven't thought of. But what if there aren't? Then we'll deal with it. But carefully. Intelligently. You did the right thing telling me? Don't say anything to anyone else yet. Can you do that? He nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Good. Now go wash your face and rejoin the others. Act normal. Can you do that? I've been doing it for 2 months, he said bitterly, and the cynicism in his young voice broke my heart. After he left, I stood alone in that study, surrounded by my husband's old books and the ghosts of easier times. Through the window, I could see the barn where we'd kept horses when the children were young, the fields now leased to a neighbor since I couldn't manage them alone. This land, this house, had been in my family for generations. It was supposed to be safe, but there was a stranger at my Thanksgiving table, a woman who'd worn my daughter-in-law's face for 13 years, who'd birthed my grandson, who'd smiled and laughed and called me Mom. And I had no idea who she really was. I opened the desk drawer where I kept the papers I actually needed access to, as opposed to the boxes of old photographs gathering dust in the closet. But even as I did, a thought occurred to me. Those photos. All those family photos from 13 years of holidays and birthdays. I pulled down the nearest box from Tyler's baptism, flipped through the images. There was Monica, holding her newborn son, my son Steve beaming beside her. Monica at the christening party. Monica cutting the cake. Monica, Monica, Monica. But in every single photograph, she was looking down or away, or her hand was partially covering her face. In not one image was she looking directly at the camera with a clear, unobstructed view. I'd never noticed before. Why would I? But now, with Tyler's words echoing in my head, I saw it. 13 years of carefully avoiding being photographed clearly. 13 years of lies? I closed the box with shaking hands and knew that Thanksgiving dinner had been the last normal moment I might have for a very long time. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that police photograph, heard Tyler's trembling voice, felt Monica's hand in mine during grace. I kept replaying 13 years of memories, searching for cracks I'd been too trusting to notice. At dawn, I was already in the kitchen making coffee when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Hartley, this is Officer Rebecca Santos from last night. We need to discuss what you know about Monica Richardson. Please call me at your earliest convenience. This is urgent. My hands tightened around the phone. They knew I'd lied. Of course they did. They'd probably been watching the house, seen Monica leave with Steve and Tyler after dinner. I deleted the text. Then immediately regretted it. Then wondered if deleting texts from police could be considered obstruction of justice. At 67, I'd never had so much as a parking ticket, and now I was covering for someone who might be a criminal. But she was still my grandson's mother, my son's wife. I needed to know the truth before I made any decisions that couldn't be unmade. I spent the morning doing what I'd always done when troubled, working. I cleaned the kitchen until it gleamed, tackled the bathroom grout with a toothbrush, reorganized the linen closet. Physical work helped me think. By noon, I had a plan. I called Susan first. Of all my children, she was the most practical, the least likely to fly off the handle. As a nurse, she dealt with crises calmly. Mom, what's wrong? She knew immediately. I never called midday on a Friday. I need to ask you something about Monica, and I need you to be honest, not protective. A pause. Okay. In all the years Steve's been married to her, has anything ever struck you as odd? Anything at all? Another pause. Longer. Why are you asking? Please, Susan. Just answer. She sighed. Look, I've always thought Monica was a little guarded, like she holds herself back. But Steve loves her, and she's been a good mother to Tyler. So I figured everyone has their quirks. Why? What's happened? I couldn't tell her. Not yet. Not without more information. Nothing concrete. Just something that's been bothering me. Do you remember her ever mentioning where she went to college? Or where she worked before she met Steve? Mom, this is weird. What's going on? Just trying to remember something. Do you? No, actually. Now that you mention it, I don't think she's ever talked about her past much. Steve said she had a rough childhood and didn't like discussing it. We all just respected that. After we hung up, I sat staring at my phone. A rough childhood she didn't like discussing. How convenient. How perfectly designed to shut down questions. I decided to try a different approach. I drove into town, to the county records office. The clerk, a woman named Helen who'd been there since dinosaurs walked the earth, greeted me warmly. "Alexia Hartley, haven't seen you in ages. What brings you in?" "I need to look up a marriage certificate. My son Steve's. I'm putting together a family history project and realized I don't have a copy." It was a plausible lie. Helen didn't question it. But when she pulled up the record 15 minutes later, her expression changed. "That's odd." "What is?" "The certificate shows Monica Richardson, but there's a note here about an amended filing. See this flag? That means the name was changed after the original filing, usually when someone provides updated identification showing a legal name change." My heart raced. "When was it amended?" "Looks like about 6 months after the marriage. And there's a reference number to a sealed court document." "Sealed?" "Means the name change was done through the courts with privacy protection. Usually happens in cases of witness protection, abuse situations, or sometimes identity theft victims. You'd need a court order to access the details." I drove home with my mind churning. Monica had legally changed her name, gone through the courts, had it sealed. That suggested something official, something serious. Maybe Tyler was wrong. Maybe this was legitimate protection from an abusive past. But then why hadn't she told Steve? Why the secrecy? When I got home, there was a car in my driveway I didn't recognize. A black sedan, expensive looking. My stomach knotted as I parked the truck. The man standing on my porch was in his 50s, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Mrs. Hartley? My name is Sean Simmons. I'm an attorney. I was hoping we could have a conversation about your daughter-in-law." Every instinct screamed danger. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Please, Mrs. Hartley. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm actually trying to prevent it." He pulled out a business card, handed it to me. The law firm's name was embossed in gold. Simmons and Associates, Litigation and Asset Recovery. I don't need a lawyer. Perhaps not, but Monica does. Or should I say Scarlett? The name hung in the air between us. I didn't confirm or deny, just stared at him with what I hoped was a blank expression. He continued, "I represent several individuals who have been financially harmed by Ms. Thorne's actions over the years. We've been looking for her for quite some time. Yesterday's police visit was, let's say it accelerated our timeline. If you're a lawyer, why aren't you going through proper legal channels?" "Oh, we will. But I thought it might be beneficial for you to understand the situation before things get unpleasant for your family. May I come in?" Everything in me wanted to slam the door in his face. But he knew where I lived. He knew about Monica, about the police. Refusing to listen wouldn't make him go away. I let him into my living room but didn't offer coffee or a seat. He sat anyway. "Your daughter-in-law has had quite an interesting life," he began. "Born Scarlett Thorne in Ohio. Bright girl, good with numbers. Got into some trouble in her early 20s. Identity fraud. Credit card schemes. Small stuff at first. Did 18 months in minimum security. My legs went weak. I sat down hard on the armchair across from him. After her release, she got smarter. Started running more sophisticated cons, always staying just ahead of the law. She'd establish herself in a community, build trust, access people's financial information through various means, and then disappear with their savings. We believe she's done this at least 4 times that we can prove. That's not possible. She's been here 13 years. She's had a child, built a life. Has she?" Simmons leaned forward. "Mrs. Hartley, has your son ever met her family? Does she have a job where anyone can verify her employment history? Does she have any friends from before she met your son?" The questions hit like physical blows because I knew the answers. No, no, and no. "She works part-time doing bookkeeping from home," I said weakly. "She's always helped Steve with his business finances." Simmons's expression turned pitying. "Has your son's business been profitable lately?" I thought about it. Steve ran a small construction company. He'd always done well enough, but in the last few years, he'd mentioned cash flow problems. projects finishing over budget, unexpected expenses. He'd even borrowed money from me twice, which he'd never done before. "Oh God," I whispered. "I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. But Mrs. Hartley, I need you to understand the severity of this situation. If Monica, Scarlett, has been systematically stealing from your son, that's a criminal matter. But my clients aren't interested in seeing her go to jail. We want restitution. We believe she has assets hidden somewhere, money she's siphoned over the years. If your son divorces her, those assets might disappear forever. What do you want from me? Information, access. Help us find what she's hidden and we can settle this quietly. Your son never has to know how badly he's been taken. Your grandson never has to learn his mother is a con artist. Everyone moves on." "And if I refuse?" Simmons stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "Then we go through the courts. Messy, public, expensive. Your son loses everything trying to defend her, and she still ends up in prison. Is that what you want for your family?" He placed another card on the coffee table. "Think about it. You have 48 hours before we file the civil suits. After that, it's out of my hands." After he left, I sat in that living room for an hour, unable to move. My phone rang 3 times. I ignored it. When I finally looked, there were 2 missed calls from Steve and 1 from Tyler. I called Tyler back first. "Grandma?" His voice was strained. "Something's wrong with Mom. She's been crying all day. She keeps checking her phone and looking out the windows like she's scared. Dad's at work and doesn't know. I'm worried. Tyler, listen to me carefully. I need you to do something for me. And I need you to not ask questions. Can you do that?" "Yes. Go to your mother's lockbox. The one where you found her birth certificate. Look inside and tell me exactly what documents are there. But don't let her catch you." "Grandma, I don't know if I should—" "Tyler, trust me. This is important." I heard him moving, heard a door close, then silence for several long minutes. When he came back on the line, his voice was shaking. "Grandma, there's passports in here. Like 4 different passports. All with her picture but different names. And there's papers from banks I've never heard of. And cash. A lot of cash. There's got to be like $20,000 here. My worst fears confirmed. Put everything back exactly as you found it. Then go to your room and act normal. I'm going to handle this." "Handle what?" "Grandma, what's happening?" "I don't know yet, sweetheart. But I promise you I'm going to figure it out." After hanging up, I made myself tea with trembling hands. The first rule my husband taught me about crisis management on the farm: gather all the facts before making decisions. Don't react in panic. So I sat down and made a list of everything I knew. 1. Monica was really Scarlett Thorne, with a criminal record. She had multiple passports and hidden cash. She'd legally changed her name with court-sealed records. 4. Police were looking for her for identity fraud. 5. A lawyer claimed she'd conned multiple people. 6. Steve's business had mysterious financial problems. 7. She'd been visited by someone demanding money. 8. She was currently terrified and crying. What I didn't know. Which parts were true, which were lies, and whether my daughter-in-law was a victim or a predator. My phone rang again. Steve this time. I answered. "Mom, have you talked to Monica today?" "No, why?" "She's acting strange. Won't tell me what's wrong. I thought maybe you 2 had an argument yesterday after we left or something." The lie came easily, smoothly. I hated myself for it. "No, honey. Everything was fine. Maybe she's just tired from the holiday." "Maybe." He didn't sound convinced. "Hey, random question, but did anyone come by the house yesterday looking for someone? Like, with the wrong address?" My blood ran cold. "Why would you ask that?" "Tyler mentioned something about hearing you talk to someone at the door. Said it seemed weird." Tyler hadn't mentioned telling his father anything. Had Steve overheard us in the study? Or was Tyler trying to warn me that his father was asking questions? "Just someone looking for directions," I said lightly. "You know how people get lost in the country roads." We said our goodbyes, but I knew Steve didn't believe me any more than I believed my own words. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of secrets pressing down on me. I had 48 hours before Simmons filed his lawsuits. I had a grandson carrying burdens no child should bear. I had a son who trusted a woman who might be destroying him. And I had a police department that expected me to call them back. But what I also had was 13 years of observation, of watching Monica be a mother to Tyler, of seeing her interact with Steve, of sharing holidays and ordinary moments. And in all that time, I'd seen genuine love. I'd seen her comfort Tyler through nightmares, nurse Steve through flu, laugh at my terrible jokes. Either she was the greatest actress I'd ever met, or there was more to this story than criminals and cons. My phone lit up with another text. Officer Santos again. Mrs. Hartley, your cooperation would be appreciated. We have information suggesting your family may be at risk. Please contact me immediately. I turned off my phone and pulled the covers up higher. Tomorrow, I would start digging for truth. But tonight, I would pray that I had the wisdom to know what to do with it when I found it. Because one thing was becoming clear. Everyone wanted something from Monica. The police wanted an arrest. The lawyer wanted money. Steve wanted a wife he could trust. Tyler wanted a mother who was real. And I wanted the truth, even if it destroyed everything. I woke at 5 the next morning with a plan forming in my mind. If I was going to uncover the truth, I needed to start where all secrets eventually surface, in the places people think are safe. After a quick breakfast, I drove to Steve's house. I still had a key from when I used to water their plants during vacations. Monica's car was gone. She volunteered at Tyler's school library on Saturday mornings, a detail that suddenly seemed either touchingly normal or perfectly calculated. Steve would be at a job site until noon. I let myself in, my heart pounding like a teenager sneaking out after curfew. The house was quiet, filled with the ordinary evidence of family life. Tyler's backpack by the door, Steve's work boots on the mat, a half-finished puzzle on the dining table. I went straight to Monica's home office. She kept it locked, but I'd seen her hide the key above the doorframe once when her hands were full. It was still there. Inside, everything was meticulously organized. Files labeled by year, color-coded folders, a computer that required a password I didn't have. But I wasn't looking for digital evidence. I was looking for something she'd kept hidden in plain sight. I started with the filing cabinet. Tax returns, all showing modest income from her bookkeeping work. Insurance documents. Tyler's school records. Everything perfectly normal. Perfectly documented. Too perfect, maybe. Then I noticed something odd. The bottom drawer didn't slide all the way back. I pulled it out completely and saw why. There was a false bottom, and underneath it, a sealed manila envelope. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were photographs. Old ones, printed on that glossy paper from the early 2000s. A younger Monica, Scarlett, with a man who had his arm around her, both of them laughing. More photos of them together. At a beach, at what looked like a college campus, sitting on a porch. On the back of one, in faded ink, Scarlett and James, summer 2007. But it was the newspaper clipping that made my blood run cold. The headline read, "Local man dies in apparent suicide, leaves behind questions and debt." The article was from 2008, from a small town in Pennsylvania. James Michael Brennan, age 24, found dead in his apartment from an overdose. The article mentioned suspicious circumstances, financial irregularities at the company where he'd worked, and an investigation into missing funds. At the bottom, almost as an afterthought, Brennan's fiancée, Scarlett Thorne, could not be reached for comment. I sat back on my heels, the pieces clicking together in a way I didn't want them to. A dead fiancé, missing money, a woman who disappeared. There were more documents. Court records showing Scarlett had been questioned but never charged. A restraining order filed by James's parents against her, claiming she'd manipulated their son. Letters from lawyers, collection agencies, angry creditors. And then, buried at the bottom, something that changed everything. A psychiatric evaluation from 2009, court-ordered as part of some legal proceeding. I skimmed it, my nursing daughter's medical terminology helping me parse the clinical language. The psychologist's conclusion was clear. Scarlett Thorne showed signs of complex PTSD, likely stemming from severe childhood trauma. She exhibited patterns of self-protection including identity shifting, emotional dissociation, and an inability to form stable attachments. Recommended treatment, long-term therapy, possible medication. But what struck me most was a handwritten note stapled to the back from a different doctor, dated 2010. Patient shows remarkable progress, has maintained stable employment and housing for 8 months, expresses genuine remorse for past actions and strong motivation to change. Recommend continued therapy but believe she can successfully reintegrate into society with proper support. I was still sitting on the floor, documents spread around me, when I heard the front door open. "Mom?" Steve's voice. He was home early. I shoved everything back into the envelope, but there was no time to return it to its hiding place. I heard his footsteps coming down the hall, and in a moment of pure panic, I slipped the envelope under my sweater and stood up, closing the drawer with my foot. Steve appeared in the doorway, his face registering surprise, then confusion, then something harder. "What are you doing in Monica's office?" "I was looking for—" My mind raced. "Tyler's birth certificate. For my family history project. Susan mentioned Monica kept all the important documents organized, so I thought, Mom, this room is private and locked. How did you even get in?" "The key was in the door." I lied, praying he wouldn't check. His eyes narrowed. He knew me too well. What's really going on? First the weird questions to Susan about Monica. Now this. "Are you snooping?" "Steve, is this about those people who came to the door on Thanksgiving? Tyler said there were cops. He was scared, Mom." "What's happening?" I made a decision in that moment. Not the whole truth, but enough of it. I think Monica might be in some kind of trouble. From her past. Before she met you. His expression shifted from anger to defensiveness. "What kind of trouble?" "I don't know exactly, but people have been asking questions. A lawyer came to see me yesterday. Said Monica owed money to his clients." "What lawyer?" I pulled out Sean Simmons's card, handed it to him. Steve stared at it, his jaw working. "She told me her past was difficult," he said quietly, "that she'd made mistakes and wanted a fresh start. I married her anyway because I loved her, because I believed people deserved second chances. Was I wrong?" The pain in his voice broke my heart. "I don't know yet, honey, but I'm trying to find out. By breaking into her office? By protecting my family. Steve, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" He was silent for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "But Mom, whatever you find, I need to know. All of it. No more secrets." After he left for his job site, troubled but accepting, I returned home with the envelope burning like contraband under my sweater. I spread everything out on my kitchen table and started making connections. Scarlett's pattern was becoming clear. She'd been young, traumatized, desperate. She'd gotten involved with James, and things had gone wrong. Whether through her actions or his or both, I couldn't tell. But the death had triggered something. Flight. Survival mode. And then years of running, changing identities, always staying ahead of consequences. Until she met Steve. My phone rang. Officer Santos, persistent as ever. This time I answered. "Mrs. Hartley, thank you for calling back." "I didn't call back. You called me." "Nevertheless, we need to discuss Scarlett Thorne. We know she was at your residence on Thanksgiving. We have surveillance footage from your street." My mouth went dry. "I don't know anyone by that name. Mrs. Hartley, lying to police is a serious matter. We also know you visited the county records office yesterday asking about your son's marriage certificate. We've been monitoring this case for months. We know Monica Richardson is Scarlett Thorne. What we don't know is whether you're helping her evade justice or if you're simply a concerned family member caught in the middle. What exactly are you investigating her for? Identity fraud, wire fraud, money laundering. We believe she's part of a larger network that's been operating across multiple states. Your son may be an unwitting accomplice, or he may be her next victim. Either way, we need to bring her in for questioning. A network. That's not—" I stopped myself. "Not what, Mrs. Hartley?" I thought about the psychiatric evaluation, the therapy notes, the progression from traumatized young woman to whatever Monica had become. When were these crimes committed? Recently? A pause. Our investigation spans the last 15 years. So nothing in the last 13? Another pause. Longer. Why is that significant? Because maybe people change, officer. Maybe someone who made terrible choices when they were young and hurt found a way to become better. Or maybe they just got better at hiding. Mrs. Hartley, we're prepared to offer you immunity if you cooperate with our investigation. But we need information, and we need it now. There are other people involved, dangerous people who are also looking for Scarlett. If you care about your family's safety, you'll help us bring her in before someone else finds her first. After the call ended, I sat staring at the phone. Dangerous people. Sean Simmons had seemed polished, civilized. But what if he was just the front man? What if the people Monica owed money to were more than angry creditors? The thought had barely formed when my front window shattered. I dropped to the floor on instinct, my heart hammering. A rock lay among the broken glass with a note wrapped around it. With shaking hands, I unwrapped it. Stop looking. Mind your business or your grandson pays. Tyler. They'd threatened Tyler. I was still on the floor, gripping the note, when my phone rang again. Tyler's number. Grandma? His voice was high, panicked. Grandma, someone's following me. I left basketball practice and there's a car that's been behind me for like 10 minutes. I'm scared. Where are you? Heading toward Main Street. Should I go to the police? Every instinct screamed yes, but something held me back. If Tyler went to the police, they'd question him. He'd tell them about the passports, the cash, everything he knew. Monica would be arrested before I understood what was really happening. Go to the diner on Main, the one with the Saturday crowd. Go inside, find a booth where people can see you, and stay there. I'm coming right now. But the car? They won't do anything in public, honey. Trust me. I'll be there in 10 minutes. I drove faster than I had in years, my mind racing faster than my truck. Someone had found out I was investigating. Someone was watching, threatening. Sean Simmons? The police? Someone else entirely? When I got to the diner, Tyler was in a booth by the window, pale but safe. I slid in across from him and took his trembling hands. Did you see who was in the car? No, it had tinted windows. But Grandma, it's still out there. See the black SUV across the street? I looked. Sure enough, a black SUV with dark windows sat idling, watching us. Tyler, I need you to tell me something, and I need complete honesty. Has your mother ever seemed scared of anyone specific? Has anyone besides that man with the money ever come to the house? He thought hard. There was a woman once, like 6 months ago. Mom called her Catherine. They talked in the garage for a long time, and afterward Mom was really upset. I heard her tell Dad she'd run into an old friend from before, that it brought up bad memories. Did you hear what they talked about? Not much. But the woman said something about how Mom couldn't hide forever, that Catherine had found her and others would too. Mom said she wasn't hiding anymore, that she'd built a life and wasn't going to let the past destroy it. I processed this. Catherine. Another name to add to the growing list. Another thread to pull. Grandma, what's happening? Why is someone following me? Is Mom really a criminal? I looked at my grandson's frightened face and made a choice. I don't think your mother is what anyone thinks she is. Not the police, not the lawyers, not even herself. But I think she's running from something that won't let her go. And now it's catching up to all of us. What are we going to do? We're going to fight back. But smart. Carefully. Your grandfather used to say that the best way to win a fight is to know more than your opponent. So we're going to learn everything there is to know about your mother's past, and then we're going to decide what to do with it. Tyler's face hardened with determination that reminded me so much of his grandfather. How? First, we're going to talk to your mother. Really talk to her. No more secrets, no more hiding. It's time she trusted us with the truth. She won't. She's too scared. Then we'll have to show her that staying silent is more dangerous than speaking up. We left the diner through the back exit, leaving my truck in the parking lot as a decoy. I called Susan to pick us up 2 blocks away, giving her no explanation except that it was an emergency. The black SUV never moved from its position watching the front entrance. But as Susan's car pulled away, I saw the SUV's brake lights activate. They knew we'd slipped out. They knew we were running. The game had changed. I wasn't just investigating anymore. I was protecting my family from shadows I didn't understand, from a past that refused to stay buried, from consequences of choices made long before my grandson was born. And somewhere in the middle of it all was Monica, or Scarlett, or whoever she really was, carrying secrets that might destroy us all or save us, if only I could figure out which. Susan didn't ask questions during the drive, bless her, though I could see them building behind her eyes. She dropped us at my house and I promised to explain everything soon. The lie tasted bitter, but I was getting used to that flavor. Inside, I locked every door and window, then called Steve. He needed to bring Monica here. Now, tonight. No excuses, no delays. Mom, what's going on? You sound terrified. Because I am. Please, Steve. Trust me one more time. Bring Monica to the farm. Tell her it's urgent family business. Don't tell her anything else. 3 hours later, as dusk settled over the fields, Steve's truck pulled into my driveway. Monica got out slowly, her face drawn and pale. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. When she saw me standing on the porch with Tyler, something in her expression crumbled. You know, she whispered, we need to talk. All of us. Inside. In my living room, the 4 of us sat in a circle that felt more like an interrogation than a family meeting. Tyler on my right, Steve on my left, Monica across from me in my husband's old chair. The irony wasn't lost on me. She sat where the head of the family used to sit, the person everyone trusted. I'm going to start, I said, and then you're going to fill in everything I got wrong. Your real name is Scarlett Marie Thorne. You were born in Ohio in 1983. You were engaged to James Brennan, who died in 2008 under suspicious circumstances. You've been running from something ever since. Does that cover the basics? Monica's face had gone white. Steve made a choking sound beside me. Mom, what? Let her answer, Steve. Monica's hands twisted in her lap. When she finally looked up, her eyes were haunted. How much do you know? Enough to be dangerous, not enough to understand. So tell us. All of it. She was silent for so long I thought she might refuse. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she began. My father was a financial analyst who got caught embezzling from his firm when I was 15. He went to prison. My mother couldn't handle the shame and the debt collectors, so she left. I ended up in foster care, bouncing between homes until I aged out. I learned early that trust was dangerous, that people used you and threw you away. Tyler leaned forward, his young face etched with compassion I hadn't expected. Mom, please, let me finish before I lose my courage. She took a shaky breath. I met James in college. He was kind, stable, everything I'd never had. But I was damaged, you know. I had this compulsive need to control things, especially money. If I controlled the money, I controlled my safety. So I started managing our finances, then helping his friends, then working at his company doing bookkeeping. And you stole from them, I said, not unkindly. Not at first. At first, I just moved money around, made investments without telling people, always planning to put it back with interest. I convinced myself I was helping, that I was smarter than everyone else. Her voice broke. But then James found out. He confronted me. We fought. He said he was going to report me, that he loved me but couldn't let me destroy other people. I was so scared of going to prison like my father that I said terrible things. Threatened to ruin him, to make it look like he was the one stealing. I was cruel and desperate and so stupid. And then he died, I prompted gently. He died that night. Overdose. The police said suicide, but James didn't use drugs. His parents blamed me, said I'd driven him to it. Maybe they were right. The company investigated, found the missing money, but they couldn't prove definitively that I'd taken it or that James had. Everything was too tangled. They couldn't prosecute without more evidence, but James's parents got a restraining order and everyone knew. I was toxic. Steve had his head in his hands. Why didn't you tell me any of this? Because I was ashamed. Because I'd spent 3 years in therapy learning to be someone better, someone worthy of love, and I didn't want to be that broken girl anymore. When I met you, Steve, I was working at a coffee shop, seeing a therapist twice a week, staying clean and honest. I'd legally changed my name, sealed my records, tried to start over. You were so good, so uncomplicated in your goodness. I fell in love with who I could be when I was with you. But you kept the passports, Tyler said quietly. The cash. Multiple identities. Why? Monica looked at her son with such raw pain that I had to look away. Because I couldn't completely trust that I deserved happiness. Because part of me was always waiting for it to fall apart. And because, she hesitated, because Catherine found me 5 years ago. The name sent ice down my spine. Who is Catherine? James's sister. She's never believed his death was suicide. She's spent 15 years investigating, connecting dots, building a case. She tracked me down and told me she had evidence, real evidence, that could put me in prison for manslaughter. She said James's death wasn't an overdose, that he'd taken pills I'd given him, pills I'd told him were for anxiety, but were actually something else. That's insane, Steve said. Is it true? No. But Catherine had falsified medical records, pharmacy receipts with my old name on them, testimony from people I barely knew. She'd constructed this elaborate frame. She told me if I ever looked happy, if I ever seemed settled, she'd send everything to the police. She wanted me to suffer forever. So you paid her, I said, remembering Tyler's story about the man collecting money. Every few months, someone comes for money. Catherine's proxies. She takes everything I manage to save. I've been working bookkeeping jobs under the table, skimming just enough to survive and pay her off. I thought if I could just keep it together, keep everyone safe, Tyler could grow up normal. But Mom, Tyler said, his voice cracking, Dad's business has been failing. Have you been taking money from Dad to pay Catherine? The silence was damning. Steve stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Tell me you didn't steal from me. Tell me my wife didn't rob me blind while I trusted her. I always planned to pay it back. That's what thieves say. His voice rose to a shout. That's what my mother said you'd say. I defended you, Monica. I believed in you. I know, I'm sorry. How much? How much did you take? Monica's voice was barely audible. About $40,000 over the last 5 years. Steve made a sound like he'd been punched. Tyler was crying silently. And I sat there feeling the weight of every secret, every lie, every rationalization that had brought us to this moment. There's more, Monica whispered. Catherine isn't the only one who found me. Sean Simmons, that lawyer, he really does represent people I conned before I met Steve. Old victims from my early 20s. They want their money back, with interest. He's given me a week to produce $120,000 or he files criminal charges. $120,000? Steve's voice was hollow. Where would you even get that kind of money? Monica looked at me then, really looked at me, and I understood. You were going to ask me for it, I said. That's why you've been so attentive lately. Why you kept asking about the farm's value, about my retirement accounts. She didn't deny it. Steve exploded. You were going to con my mother? Your own family? I wasn't going to con her. I was going to borrow it, pay everyone off, and then we could finally be free. I have a plan, Steve. I've been trading stocks. I have some accounts that are doing well. With whose money? I asked sharply. With money you stole? With money I'm trying to multiply. I'm good at this, Alexia. I really am. If I could just get enough capital to work with, I could pay back everyone, set us up for life. Stop, I said, holding up my hand. Just stop. Monica, do you hear yourself? You're still justifying, still manipulating, still convinced you can scheme your way out of consequences. I'm trying to protect my family. By stealing from them? By lying to them? By putting Tyler in danger? I gestured to my grandson, who looked shattered. Someone followed him today, Monica. Someone threw a rock through my window with a threat against Tyler. Your past isn't just catching up to you. It's attacking all of us. Monica's face went from pale to gray. No. Catherine wouldn't. She promised if I paid, she'd leave my family alone. You believed the person blackmailing you? Steve's laugh was bitter. How can you be so smart about money and so stupid about people? A knock at the door made us all freeze. Hard. Official. I knew that knock now. Through the window, I saw 3 police cars and twice as many officers. Officer Santos stood at the front, with Sean Simmons slightly behind her, and next to them, a woman I didn't recognize but Monica clearly did, based on her sharp intake of breath. "Catherine," Monica breathed. "Stay here," I ordered, moving to the door. Officer Santos held up her badge. "Mrs. Hartley, we have a warrant for the arrest of Scarlett Marie Thorne, also known as Monica Richardson. We know she's inside. We also have a warrant to search these premises for evidence of ongoing fraud and money laundering." "On what grounds?" "On the grounds that your daughter-in-law has been operating an illegal investment scheme using stolen identities and embezzled funds. We have testimony from multiple victims and evidence provided by Ms. Catherine Brennan that Scarlett has continued her criminal activities throughout her marriage." Catherine stepped forward, her face hard. "She killed my brother, and she's been stealing ever since. It ends tonight." Behind me, I heard Monica sobbing. Steve was shouting something about lawyers. Tyler was frozen in shock. And I stood in my doorway, the family I'd tried to protect crumbling around me, facing a choice that would define everything that came next. Let them arrest Monica and watch my family destroyed by truth and consequences, or fight back with the one weapon I had left: information they didn't know I possessed. I thought of the psychiatric evaluation in my kitchen, of the therapy notes showing genuine progress, of 13 years of watching Monica be a mother and a wife. Flawed? Yes. Criminal, maybe, but also human, also trying, also deserving of a chance. "Officer Santos," I said calmly, "before you arrest anyone, you should know that I have evidence that Catherine Brennan has been extorting money from my daughter-in-law for 5 years. I also have evidence that the case against Monica is built on fabricated documents, and I have witnesses who can testify to all of it. It was a bluff. Mostly. But I'd learned something in 67 years. Confidence and truth look remarkably similar when you need them to." Catherine's face twisted with rage. "She's lying. She's protecting a murderer. Then you won't mind if we all sit down with lawyers present and go through everything piece by piece, will you?" I met Officer Santos's eyes. "Or are you more interested in a quick arrest than actual justice?" The standoff lasted an eternity. Behind me, I could feel my family holding its breath. In front of me, law enforcement and vengeance waited for my next move. Officer Santos finally spoke. "Mrs. Hartley, if you're obstructing justice, I'm offering cooperation. Full cooperation. But on my terms, with legal representation, and with guarantees that my family's safety comes first. Otherwise, you'll have to arrest me too. And I promise you, the media attention on a grandmother being dragged away for protecting her family won't look good for anyone." It was a gamble. Everything was a gamble now. But I'd played my whole life by the rules, trusting that goodness and honesty were enough. Now I was learning what my husband always knew. Sometimes you had to be willing to bend the rules to protect what mattered most. Officer Santos studied me for a long moment, weighing her options. Behind her, Catherine was practically vibrating with fury, but the officer held up a hand to silence her. "You have 1 hour, Santos finally said. 1 hour to produce this evidence with your lawyer present. After that, we're executing the warrant regardless. 2 hours, and we meet at the station, not here. My home doesn't get torn apart by a search warrant when I'm cooperating voluntarily." Another pause. "Fine. Mrs. Hartley, we won't delay the warrant. Monica can surrender voluntarily at the station within the next 2 hours, escorted by us, with no further movement inside the house. We'll wait outside. If she attempts to flee or destroy evidence, the warrant is executed immediately. I'm a 67-year-old grandmother who bakes pies and goes to church. I don't play games, officer. I solve problems." After they left, I turned to find my family staring at me like I'd grown a second head. "Mom," Steve said carefully, "what evidence are you talking about?" "The truth. Or at least enough of it to make everyone think twice." I looked at Monica, who was still crying quietly. "Stop that. Crying won't help now. We have 2 hours to build a case, and you're going to help." "How?" "They have everything they need to destroy me." "No, they have what Catherine fed them. There's a difference. Now, I need you to think clearly. When Catherine first contacted you 5 years ago with her fabricated evidence, what exactly did she show you?" Monica wiped her eyes, struggling to focus. Medical records supposedly showing I'd picked up prescriptions for anxiety medication and sleeping pills in the weeks before James died. Testimony from my old roommate saying I'd talked about wanting James to sleep forever. Photos of me at a pharmacy. But you said it was fabricated. It was. I never picked up those prescriptions. That roommate hated me because I'd reported her for stealing. And the pharmacy photos could have been from any time. Did you keep copies of what she showed you? No, she only let me see them, wouldn't let me photograph or touch them. She said she had the originals in a safe place. I turned to Tyler. You said there were bank papers in the lockbox. Get them. Now. While Tyler ran to get his backpack, he'd had the foresight to grab it before we left Steve's house. I called Susan. I need you to come to the farm immediately. Bring your hospital ID and any access you have to medical records databases. Don't ask questions, just come. Mom, what? Susan, please. I need my nurse daughter, not my worried child. Can you do that? I'm on my way. Peter was next. I need you to call that friend of yours, the one who works in the DA's office. Ask him what he knows about Catherine Brennan and any ongoing investigations involving her name. Mom, it's Saturday night. Then interrupt his Saturday night. This is family, Peter. By the time Susan arrived 20 minutes later, I had the documents from Monica's lockbox spread across my kitchen table. Bank statements from accounts I'd never heard of. Investment portfolios, transaction records, what looked like client lists with initials instead of names. Susan took one look at the scene and whistled. Mom, what have you gotten into? Something that's going to require your particular expertise. Monica, these accounts? Are they legitimate investments or are they part of some scheme? Monica looked at the papers, her face flushing. They're both. Some of the money came from Steve's business, yes. But I didn't just steal it. She turned the $40,000 she took, plus about $30,000 she quietly inherited from James's accounts after his death, into almost $230,000 through years of careful investing. With money that wasn't yours to risk, Steve said coldly from the doorway. He hadn't spoken much since the police left, just watched everything with hollow eyes. I know that, but don't you see? I can pay everyone back now. Sean Simmons's clients, Catherine, everyone. I have the money. Then why didn't you? I asked. Because the moment I liquidate these accounts, they become traceable. Catherine has been watching my finances. If she sees large withdrawals, she'll know I've been holding out on her. She'll follow through on her threats. Or, I said slowly, she'll realize she's lost her leverage. I turned to Susan. These medical records Catherine supposedly has showing Monica picked up prescriptions before James's death. Can you check if they're real? Susan sat down at the table with her laptop. If they're from a Pennsylvania pharmacy 15 years ago, the records might not be digitized or accessible to me, but I can check for some red flags. What's the pharmacy name and date? Monica provided the information from memory, her hands shaking. We all watched as Susan typed, navigated through screens, made phone calls to colleagues, pulled in favors I knew she'd have to repay someday. Finally, after 30 minutes that felt like hours, Susan looked up. The pharmacy exists, but according to their records, and I had to call in a major favor to get someone to check their archived files, there's no record of any Scarlett Thorne or Monica Richardson ever picking up prescriptions there. Not in 2008, not ever. She faked them, Monica breathed. I knew it, but I had no proof. Now we do, I said. What else? Peter called back. Mom, this is weird. My friend says Catherine Brennan has filed multiple police reports over the years accusing different people of being involved in her brother's death. She's been flagged as a possible harassment case. Apparently, she's obsessed, maybe unbalanced. The DA's office has been reluctant to pursue any of her allegations because her credibility is questionable. The pieces were clicking together. So Catherine has been on a 15-year crusade, making accusations, building elaborate theories, maybe even fabricating evidence, and no one in law enforcement takes her seriously anymore. Except Officer Santos apparently did, Steve pointed out, or pretended to get Monica to cooperate. I thought about Santos's careful words, her studied neutrality. Maybe Santos isn't here to arrest Monica. Maybe she's here to finally catch Catherine in the act of extortion and fraud. That's a big assumption, Mom. Then let's test it. I picked up my phone and called Officer Santos directly. She answered on the second ring. Mrs. Hartley. Officer, I have a question. Has Catherine Brennan ever been investigated for filing false police reports or engaging in extortion? Silence. Then, I can't discuss ongoing investigations. That's not a no. What if I told you I could prove Catherine has been extorting money from Monica for 5 years, using fabricated evidence? Would that be of interest to your investigation? Another pause. It might be, but I'd need solid proof. Then I suggest, when we meet at the station, you bring whoever handles fraud and extortion cases, because what I'm about to give you goes far beyond identity fraud from 15 years ago. After I hung up, Steve was looking at me with something like awe. Mom, what are you doing? I'm making them see the bigger picture. Catherine has been so focused on revenge that she's committed crimes herself. If we can prove that, suddenly Monica stops being the villain and starts being the victim. But I'm not just a victim, Monica said quietly. I did steal money. From multiple people, including your son. I can't pretend that away. No, you can't. But you can make it right. That's what the money in these accounts is for, isn't it? Deep down? Monica looked at me with tears streaming down her face. I kept telling myself I was just waiting for the right moment, when I had enough to pay everyone back with interest, to finally be free. But maybe I was just too scared to face the consequences. Then face them now, I said firmly. On your terms. With the truth. We spent the next hour preparing. Susan documented everything we'd found about the pharmacy records. Peter got written statements from his DA contact. I compiled the bank records showing both Monica's theft and her investment gains. And Tyler, bless him, wrote a statement about what he'd witnessed. The extortion, his mother's fear, the threats. When we arrived at the police station, we weren't a family in crisis anymore. We were a unit with a strategy. The conference room was crowded. Officer Santos and her partner, Sean Simmons, Catherine Brennan, practically radiating vindication, and 2 new faces, Detective West from Financial Crimes, and an assistant district attorney named Patricia Vance. Thank you all for coming, I began, taking control before anyone else could. I'm Alexia Hartley, and I'm here to provide evidence regarding multiple crimes, but not necessarily the ones you think. I laid out the documents methodically. First, the evidence that Catherine's medical records were fabricated, Susan's findings, the pharmacy records, the timeline inconsistencies. I watched Catherine's face go from smug to pale. That's not possible, Catherine stammered. I have the originals. No, you have forgeries. Sophisticated ones, I'll grant you. But forgeries nonetheless. Which raises the question, if you were so certain Monica was guilty, why did you need to fabricate evidence? I didn't fabricate anything. She killed my brother. Your brother died of an overdose, Ada Vance said, consulting the file in front of her. The medical examiner ruled it accidental, possibly intentional on his part. There was never any evidence suggesting another party was involved. Because she covered it up. She was smart, she knew how to hide. Or maybe, I interrupted gently, you needed someone to blame for a tragedy that had no villain. Grief makes us do terrible things, Ms. Brennan. But fabricating evidence and extorting money for 5 years? That's not grief. That's criminal. Detective West leaned forward. Ms. Brennan, do you deny that you've been receiving regular payments from Monica Richardson? She owed me. She owed my family. Owed you for what? A crime she was never charged with? A crime you can't prove she committed? He turned to Monica. Mrs. Richardson, are you willing to provide evidence of these extortion payments? Monica nodded, her voice steady. I kept records. Every payment, every threat, every contact. I knew someday it might come to this. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were bank statements showing withdrawals, notes documenting Catherine's threats, even recordings from her phone of several recent calls where Catherine explicitly demanded money. Catherine's face crumbled. You recorded me? I learned from the best, Monica said quietly. You taught me that survival means documentation. Sean Simmons cleared his throat. This is all very interesting, but my clients are still owed money that Mrs. Richardson stole years ago. That doesn't go away because she claims she was being extorted. You're right, I said. It doesn't, which is why Monica is prepared to make full restitution to your clients. With interest. I placed the investment account statements on the table. As you can see, Monica took approximately $40,000 from her husband's business over 5 years. She also, before meeting my son, took money from several individuals through fraudulent investment schemes. The total, according to Mr. Simmons's calculations, is approximately $120,000. Simmons nodded warily, unsure where I was going. What Mr. Simmons doesn't know is that Monica invested that money. Against all odds, despite having no right to it, she turned it into substantial returns. These accounts currently hold approximately $230,000. The room went silent. Monica is willing to liquidate these accounts and repay every penny she took, plus 20% interest to every person she harmed. Mr. Simmons, your clients will be made whole. Steve, you'll be repaid with interest. And Monica will take whatever criminal consequences the DA decides are appropriate, but with the understanding that she's already made material restitution. Ada Vance studied the documents carefully. Mrs. Richardson, you understand that by admitting to these thefts, you're exposing yourself to potential prosecution? I do, Monica said. I'm tired of running. I'm tired of lying. If I have to face consequences to finally be free, then that's what I'll do. And the identity fraud charges? Officer Santos asked. I legally changed my name through the courts, Monica replied. I have the sealed documents to prove it. I disclosed my past to the authorities who processed the change. Everything was done properly, if privately. I never used false identities after meeting Steve. No fake credit cards, no fraudulent accounts. Just a legal name change to escape a past I was ashamed of. Santos looked at Catherine. Ms. Brennan, did you report that Mrs. Richardson was using false identities currently? Or did you simply tell us about her past name change? Catherine's silence was damning. You led us to believe she was actively committing identity fraud, Santos continued, her voice hardening. You provided information suggesting ongoing criminal activity, when in fact you were aware she'd changed her name legally. That's a false police report, Ms. Brennan. And combined with evidence of extortion, I want a lawyer, Catherine said suddenly. That's probably wise, Detective West replied. The meeting continued for another hour, but the outcome was clear. Catherine was facing charges. Monica would have to plead guilty to her old financial crimes and work out restitution agreements. But with the money to repay victims and evidence of rehabilitation, the DA was willing to discuss probation rather than prison time. Sean Simmons's clients would get their money back with interest, and he left looking disappointed that his contingency fee would be smaller than anticipated. When we finally left the station near midnight, my family spilled out into the parking lot in exhausted silence. Then Steve turned to Monica, and I held my breath. You stole from me, he said quietly. You lied to me for years. You were going to ask my mother for money without telling me why. I know. I don't know if I can forgive that. I understand. But, he continued, his voice breaking, you also protected our son. You turned stolen money into more than enough to make things right. You face the consequences tonight instead of running. That has to count for something. Does it count enough? Monica whispered. Steve was quiet for a long time. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I'm willing to find out. With counseling. With complete honesty from here on out. With you proving every single day that you're the woman you say you want to be. Monica collapsed into his arms, sobbing. Tyler joined them, and I watched my broken family begin the long process of healing. Susan came to stand beside me. Mom, that was incredible. How did you know it would work? I didn't, I admitted. But I knew one thing for certain. The truth, even ugly truth, is always stronger than secrets. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop running and face what you've done. Do you think they'll make it? Steve and Monica? I watched my son hold his wife. Watched my grandson cling to both his parents. I think they have a chance. A real one. And sometimes, that's all anyone gets. a chance to be better than they were. As we drove home in the dark, I thought about all the secrets that had been dragged into the light, all the lies that had finally been confronted. My family would never be the same. But maybe, just maybe, it could be something better. 3 months later, I stood in my kitchen on a Tuesday morning, watching the first real snow of winter settle over the fields. The barn needed a new coat of paint come spring. The fence by the road still sagged where a branch had fallen during the autumn storms, but the farm endured. It always had. My phone rang. Monica's number. We talked most days now, though the conversations were different than they used to be. More careful, more honest. Alexia, the last payment cleared. Sean Simmons confirmed all his clients have been repaid in full. We're done. It's finally over. I heard the tremor in her voice, the disbelief that freedom could be so simple after so many years of fear. How do you feel? Terrified, she admitted. Like I don't know who I am without secrets to carry. Then I guess you'll have to figure that out. The real you, not the one running from the past or hiding from the future. Steve wants me to move out for a while, just temporarily, while we do counseling. He's not asking for divorce, but he needs space. I found an apartment in town. My heart ached for all of them. And Tyler? He's angry. Not at me exactly, but at the situation. At having to grow up so fast. His therapist says he's processing trauma, that he'll need time. But Alexia, he still hugs me goodnight. Even when he's furious, he still hugs me. That has to mean something, right? It means you raised a good boy. That's not nothing. After we hung up, I made myself tea and sat at the kitchen table where so many battles had been planned and fought. The documents from Monica's case were long gone, returned to lawyers and courts and filing cabinets. But I'd kept copies of the important things. Not for blackmail or leverage, but for memory, for proof that the impossible had happened. The newspaper had run a story about Catherine's arrest. Local woman charged with extortion and filing false police reports. It was brief, buried on page 6. No mention of Monica, who'd pleaded guilty to financial fraud charges from before her marriage in exchange for 5 years probation and court-supervised restitution. Her lawyer had argued successfully that she'd already made full repayment, had shown sustained rehabilitation, and posed no ongoing threat to the community. The judge had been stern, but fair. Mrs. Richardson, you've caused real harm to real people. That you've repaid them doesn't erase the violation of trust. But the court also recognizes that people can change, and you appear to have made genuine efforts to do so. I'm giving you a chance. Don't make me regret it. Steve had attended the sentencing, sitting in the back row. He didn't sit with Monica, but he came. That felt significant. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Susan, with a casserole, and that determined expression she got when she was about to give me unwanted advice. Mom, you need to eat better. I saw your refrigerator last week. Nothing but leftovers and cheese. I'm 67, not 90. I can feed myself. Debatable. She set the casserole in the oven and turned to face me. How are you really doing? You've been so busy managing everyone else's crisis that you haven't dealt with your own. What crisis? I'm fine. Mom, your window still has cardboard taped over it from where someone threw a rock through it. You had police and criminals and family drama exploding in your living room. You blackmailed law enforcement into listening to you. You orchestrated a legal strategy that kept your daughter-in-law out of prison and exposed a disturbed woman's revenge scheme. That's not fine. That's trauma. I looked at my daughter, seeing in her face the same stubborn concern I'd given my own children 1,000 times. When did you get so smart? I learned from the best. She sat down across from me. Seriously, though? Are you okay? Was I? I thought about the question honestly. I'm tired. I'm sad that my family went through this. I'm angry that Monica felt she couldn't trust us with the truth from the beginning. I'm frustrated that Steve's business took such a hit, even if he's being repaid. And I paused, searching for the word. I'm proud. Proud? Of what we did. Of how we faced it. We could have fallen apart. We could have chosen sides and destroyed each other. But we didn't. We fought for the truth, even when it was ugly. That takes strength. Susan reached across the table and took my hand. You know the family wants to do something to thank you. Peter suggested throwing you a party. Steve wants to pay for you to take a vacation. Tyler made you something in art class that I've been sworn not to reveal. Tell them no parties, no vacations. If they want to thank me, they can show up for Sunday dinners and be honest with each other. That's all I've ever wanted. But Susan was looking at me with that expression she got when she was seeing through my walls. Mom, you've spent your whole life taking care of everyone else. Dad, the farm, us kids, and now your grandkid. When do you get to need something? When do you get to be vulnerable? The question hit harder than I expected. I thought about the nights after my husband died when I'd cried into his pillow where no one could hear. About the years of managing the farm alone, of being strong because someone had to be. About Thanksgiving dinner when police came to the door and my world tilted. And I'd never once let anyone see how terrified I was. I'm not built that way, I said finally. Maybe it's time to learn. After Susan left, I walked out to the barn. It was cold, my breath making clouds in the air, but I needed the space and silence. Inside, the barn held memories of horses long gone, of my children learning to ride, of Tyler's first attempt to milk a cow that had ended in laughter and disaster. I found my husband's old workbench, covered in dust now, and sat on the stool he'd built 40 years ago. If he were here, what would he say about everything that had happened? I could almost hear his voice, dry and practical. Alexia, you did good. Now stop second-guessing yourself. But had I done good? Monica was facing consequences, yes. But she was also separated from her family, living alone in an apartment, starting over at 41. Steve was hurt, betrayed, struggling to trust. Tyler was in therapy, processing the revelation that his mother was someone else entirely. And I was the one who'd forced it all into the open. I could have let the police arrest Monica, let the system handle it, stayed out of the mess. Instead, I'd dug deeper, fought harder, demanded truth when comfortable lies might have been kinder. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. Grandma, can I come over after school? I want to show you what I made. I smiled despite myself. Of course, I'll make hot chocolate. When Tyler arrived 3 hours later, he was carrying a wooden box, clearly made in shop class. It was rough around the edges, the joints not quite square, but stained carefully and sanded smooth. I made you this, he said, suddenly shy. For all your important papers and stuff, since you're always organizing things for everyone. I took the box, feeling the weight of it, running my fingers over the wood. On the top, he'd burned a design with one of those wood-burning tools, a farmhouse with fields stretching behind it, and underneath, words that made my throat tight. For Grandma, who keeps us all together. Tyler, this is beautiful. It's not perfect. The corners are kind of wonky, and I messed up the roofline a little. It's perfect because you made it. I set it on the table and pulled him into a hug. He was taller than me now. When had that happened? Thank you, sweetheart. We sat in the kitchen, drinking hot chocolate like we had when he was small, before everything got complicated. For a while, we didn't talk about Monica or Steve or any of it. We just existed in the moment, grandmother and grandson, safe in the eye of the storm. Finally, Tyler spoke. Grandma, do you think Mom's a bad person? I considered the question carefully. I think your mom is a person who made bad choices when she was hurt and scared. I think she's been trying to be better for a long time, but she was carrying so much shame and fear that she couldn't do it the right way. Does that make her bad? I don't know, but I know she loves you fiercely, and that's real. Dad says love isn't enough sometimes. Your dad's right. Love without honesty, without trust, without respect, that's not sustainable. But love with those things? That can survive almost anything. Your parents are figuring out if they can build that kind of love again. It's going to take time. What if they can't? Then they'll both still be your parents, and you'll still be loved. Just differently than before. Families change shape, Tyler. They bend and break and reform. What matters is that the love remains, even when everything else shifts. He was quiet for a long time, processing. Then, how did you know what to do? When everything was falling apart, how did you know? I thought about Officer Santos at my door. about Sean Simmons's threats, about Catherine's fabricated evidence, about standing in that police station and bluffing my way through a legal strategy I'd made up as I went along. I didn't know, I admitted. I was terrified the whole time. But I knew one thing. Silence protects secrets, and secrets were destroying us. So I chose truth, even though it was dangerous, even though it might not work. Because at my age, I've learned that you can survive consequences, but you can't survive living a lie. Were you scared? Petrified. But your grandfather used to say that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what needs to be done despite the fear. So that's what I did. Tyler nodded slowly, absorbing this. Then he surprised me. I want to be like you when I grow up, not scared of anything. Oh, honey, I'm scared of lots of things. Getting old, losing the people I love, failing when it matters. But I've also learned that being scared doesn't mean being helpless. You can be afraid and still act. You can be uncertain and still move forward. That's the real secret. Not fearlessness, but action, despite fear. We talked until dark, about school and basketball and the normal things that felt precious now. When Steve came to pick him up, there was a moment of awkwardness at the door. "Mom, do you have a minute?" Steve asked. I sent Tyler to the truck and invited Steve inside. He stood in my kitchen, this man who used to be my little boy, looking lost and tired. "I don't know how to do this," he said finally. "How to forgive her, how to trust again, how to explain to our son that his mother is a good person who did bad things. It's also tangled. It is tangled. And I don't have easy answers. But Steve, I've watched you these past 3 months. You've been hurt and angry, which is valid. But you've also been fair. You haven't turned Tyler against his mother. You haven't made rash decisions. You've given yourself time to think and feel. That's wisdom, honey. That's strength. It doesn't feel strong. It feels weak. Like I should know what to do. The strongest thing you can do is admit when you don't have answers. Ask for help. Take your time. Don't let anyone, including me, pressure you into a decision before you're ready." He looked at me with eyes that suddenly seemed young again. "What would Dad have done?" I smiled, remembering my husband's practical nature. "Your father would have sat in his workshop for 3 days, emerged with a decision, and refused to explain his reasoning. He wasn't always right, but he committed to his choices. You're more thoughtful than he was. Use that." After Steve left, I sat alone in my farmhouse, feeling the weight of the day settling into my bones. The house was quiet, except for the old furnace humming and the wind rattling the windows. Soon, it would need new weather stripping. Add it to the list of repairs that came with age, both the house's and mine. But as I prepared for bed, I caught sight of Tyler's wooden box on the kitchen table, and something warm bloomed in my chest. We'd survived. Not unscathed, not unchanged, but intact in the ways that mattered. The next Sunday, they all came for dinner. Steve and Monica arrived separately, keeping their distance but civil. Peter brought wine and stories from his latest construction job. Susan helped with the cooking, like always. And Tyler set the table, carefully arranging everyone's places. As we sat down to eat, I looked around at my family. Broken in places, healing in others, but here, together, choosing to show up despite the pain and awkwardness and uncertainty. "Before we eat," I said, "I want to say something." They all looked at me, wary of speeches. The last few months have been hard. We've learned things about each other that we wish we didn't know. We've been hurt and scared and angry, but we're here. Despite everything, we chose to be here. Together. That's not nothing. That's everything. Monica's eyes filled with tears. Steve's jaw tightened, but no one left. No one argued. They just stayed. We ate dinner with conversation that was sometimes stilted, sometimes too loud, sometimes weighted with the things we weren't saying. But there was also laughter when Peter told a ridiculous story about a client. There was warmth when Susan teased me about my cooking. There was love when Tyler talked about school, and everyone listened with genuine interest. After dinner, as I was cleaning up, Monica appeared beside me with a dish towel. "You don't have to help," I said. "I want to." She dried a plate in silence, then added quietly, Alexia, I need to ask you something. Why did you fight for me? You could have let the police take me, let me face everything alone. Why didn't you? I thought about all the reasons I could give. Because she was Tyler's mother. Because Steve loved her. Because everyone deserves a second chance. All true, but not the whole truth. Because I saw myself in you, I said finally. Not the crimes or the lies, but the fear underneath. The terror that you're not enough, that you don't deserve happiness, that one mistake will erase all the good you've tried to do. I've felt that too, Monica. We all have. You just made bigger mistakes than most. But underneath, you were just trying to survive. And I couldn't watch you drown without trying to help. She set down the plate and hugged me, sudden and fierce. Thank you for seeing me, the real me. Now you have to keep being her, the real you, not the scared version. Promise me. I promise. Later, as everyone was leaving, Tyler lingered behind. Grandma, I put something in the bottom of that box I made you, under the felt lining, for when you need it. After they'd all gone, I went to the box and carefully lifted the felt. Underneath was a folded piece of paper. I opened it to find Tyler's handwriting, slightly messy but earnest. Dear Grandma, you always take care of everyone else. But if you ever need someone to take care of you, I'm here. You taught me that family means showing up, even when it's hard. So I'm showing up for you too. I love you. Tyler. I sat at my kitchen table, in my farmhouse that had stood for generations, holding a note from my grandson, and let myself cry. Not from sadness or fear or frustration, but from the overwhelming realization that I wasn't alone. That the strength I'd given my family, they were ready to give back. The farm would need work come spring. Fences to mend, paint to apply, systems to repair. But it would still be here, still standing, still sheltering the family that had grown within its walls. And I would be here too, older now, wiser in some ways, more aware of my limitations in others, but still capable of fierce love, of difficult choices, of standing up when everything suggested sitting down would be easier. Outside, snow continued to fall, covering the fields in white, making everything clean and new. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Steve and Monica's counseling, Tyler's continued adjustment, the slow work of rebuilding trust. But tonight, in this moment, there was peace. There was family. There was the quiet satisfaction of having done the hardest thing, choosing truth over comfort, action over fear, love over judgment. At 67 years old, I'd learned that wisdom wasn't about having all the answers. It was about asking the right questions and having the courage to face whatever answers emerged. It was about knowing when to fight and when to step back, when to speak and when to listen, when to hold on and when to let go. My husband used to say that the land taught you everything you needed to know if you paid attention. Patience, perseverance, the understanding that some things couldn't be rushed, that growth took time, that what looked dead in winter could bloom again in spring. I'd spent a lifetime learning those lessons from the farm. Now I understood they applied to family too. The house settled around me with its familiar creaks and sighs. I turned off the lights and headed to bed, Tyler's box carefully placed on my nightstand where I could see it every morning. Tomorrow, I'd call Monica and check in. I'd text Steve to remind him I was here if he needed to talk. I'd make plans with Susan and Peter for next Sunday's dinner. I'd send Tyler a photo of the box on my nightstand with a thank you message. But tonight, I would rest, knowing I'd done what needed to be done. Not perfectly, not without cost, but with love, with courage, and with the hard-won wisdom that came from living long enough to understand that the greatest victories weren't loud or dramatic. They were quiet moments of choosing connection over isolation, truth over lies, and hope over despair. They were Thanksgiving dinners interrupted by police and rebuilt through honesty. They were families that survived their secrets and came out stronger on the other side. They were grandmothers who refused to let fear win, who fought with intelligence instead of force, who knew that real power came not from controlling outcomes, but from having the courage to face them. And as sleep took me, I thought of all the generations who'd lived in this house, who'd faced their own crises and survived. I was part of that chain now, passing down not just property, but wisdom. The understanding that family was worth fighting for, even when the fight was hard. Especially when the fight was hard. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering everything in white, making the world new again. And inside, an old woman slept peacefully, knowing she'd done enough. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.